Hi guys, welcome to Full Time Devils. I'm Adam McCullough. I am joined by Jamie Jackson and Mr. Stephen Howson. We're here to talk about Sir Alex Ferguson's new book, Leading. He's been selling it all week. He's been doing Q&As. He's been doing book signings. He's giving it away. And there's been stories all over the newspapers from the quotes that have been coming out of the book. I'm going to kick it off by starting with one on David Moyes. Yes, he's finally talking about David Moyes, and it's been included in one of Jamie Jackson's articles as well. So let's give it a go. The quote is, lads, I'm sure there are things that David would do differently if he had the opportunity to relive his time at Old Trafford. There is no point suddenly changing routines that players are comfortable with. It is counterproductive, saps morale, and immediately provokes players to question the new man's motives. A leader who arrives in a new setting or inherits a big role needs to curb the impulse to display his manhood. Is that about Louis van Gaal getting his balls out again, or did David Moyes balls it up? Howson, coming to you.
I actually disagree with Fergie on this because I think if Moyes comes in and just lets the club just carry on running as it was, then he's never really found out himself whether he can do the job. You can't choose a man to come and replace you and then say, listen, I'm giving you the job to replace me, but you need to do it the way I was doing it. Because Fergie would never have accepted doing that. So he can't expect anyone that follows him to do the same if they're to do the same job that he did. So I disagree with him. You've got to let David Moyes be David Moyes. And if David Moyes wants to run the club a different way, you chose him to be the manager, you've got to accept that he's going to do that. So I don't agree with Fergie that he should have just let it be what it was. David Moyes needed to put his stamp on it. He needed to sink or swim under his own methods, and obviously he sunk. So I've got no issue with it.
Jamie, what do you think Sir Alex is rewriting history a bit, and that because of David Moyes' assignment didn't go so well, he's kind of distancing himself from the decision as well now?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting move because I'm pretty sure it's the first time he's publicly basically criticised Moyes. And considering he was, Ferguson was the guy who anointed him, it's interesting. I hear what Stephen's saying. I think the point is, it is with hindsight Ferguson saying this. So to a certain extent, it didn't really matter what Moyes did as long as the team was successful. So, if he'd kept them, Phelan, etc., Eric Steele, the rest of them, and they'd won, then no one's got any complaints. He's got rid of him and it hasn't worked. So it just had to work, basically. And I don't know, it's a little bit cute of Ferguson to sort of say now, should he have done that? Because, it's sort of 2 years later, and he is the guy who basically drove his appointment. Some would say he anointed him. It was basically his...
The chosen one.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's basically saying, if you like, the chosen one didn't make the right choice himself in, culling all the backroom staff. Well, he says Phelan, but the inference is that he maybe shouldn't have got rid of all of them. So it's an interesting move from Ferguson.
I always wanted David Moyes to just make the job his own. So I understand him making those decisions to take those people out and whatever. And Mike Phelan, whether you love him or hate him, he's not going to have been that big of a factor in our success under Sir Alex Ferguson. So I think if David Moyes was a bigger manager, regardless of who he would have brought in as his assistants around him, he would have made it a success anyway. It's funny that Sir Alex is coming out and talking about it now when he's got a book to sell, regardless of how much we love him. Moving on to something that he spoke about as well. In regards to Wayne Rooney, the captain of Manchester United, still at the club, and he's talking about our captain. So he's speaking about when the Glazers and David Gill agreed to a big increase in Wayne Rooney's salary. They wanted to know how I felt. I told him I did not think it's fair if Rooney should earn twice what I made. And Joel Glazer immediately said, I totally agree with you, but what should we do? It was simple. We just agreed that no player should be paid more than me. We agreed in less time than it takes to read the previous sentence. Now, I totally agree with the sentiment behind it. But how do you picture that one going down, Howson?
I find it astonishing, to be honest. On the one hand, I agree with it because I think a manager can have more impact on a team than one individual player can. And especially a manager of Fergie's level, he can literally win you things by being manager. We saw what he did in 2003. We saw what David Moyes did with essentially the same squad that Fergie won the league with. So on one hand, I agree, the manager is more important than any individual player. And on one hand, maybe he should be rewarded the same as a star player would be rewarded. But on the other hand, it's kind of crazy to think that if we sign someone like Ronaldo and have to pay him like $500,000 a week, Fergie's got this clause which is like, boom, me, go big fat pay rise. Because I think once you involve finances in managers, I think that can affect their decision making. And maybe we didn't sign some of the players that we was looking to sign because the club wouldn't sanction the pay rise of Fergie to match them as well. I think there's quite a deep discussion to be had along Fergie's contract being linked with the players. I think it probably should be separate if we're to go ahead and be transparent with everything.
So do you think that there could be more to it than just Glazeronomics when all this value in the market stuff was going down then?
I really do, yeah. I think we saw that Fergie wouldn't deal with agents in the way that we've completely started to deal with agents since he left, and the no value in the market and the not signing big players. I always thought there was something in it with Fergie. I didn't realise quite what, but now what this has come out about his wage, no player should earn more than the manager. I actually think that there may have been a little element of Fergie refusing to sign certain players because of this agreement that he had in place with the Glazers.
Jamie, is it not just another part of Sir Alex Ferguson showing that he is the boss around Old Trafford? He is the main man and no player will outgrow him at the club.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that any manager at any club should always be the highest paid person on the football side.
Agree.
Just because, how can you possibly, if that's known as a fact amongst the squad, then whether you like it or not, immediately there's going to be respect from whichever player it is to the manager. So I have no problem with it. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised that Ferguson wasn't always, not from the word go, but from when he basically started to do the business for United, he wasn't automatically the highest paid football person at that club or at United, because for that reason. And yeah, as I say, I think that should always be the case. I hear what Stephen's saying about, well, if you get Ronaldo in, but just if you get Ronaldo in, then just pay Ferguson or whoever it is at £1 more. I just think it's one way in this sort of era of millionaire players of kind of trying to get some of the, or trying to show where the respect should lie between the player and the manager.
I agree with that in the sense that I think it's just Sir Alex Ferguson had his ways of showing who's boss. Like when he speaks about David Beckham, he always says he was becoming bigger than the club, and that's
bigger than the manager. Why, he actually said,
bigger than the manager, and I think that's probably part of the way where he was kind of dealt with the rise in wages in football, but he dealt with it his own way and making sure that he was always the top dog.
Industry, or show me another industry where it's a regular occurrence that the person in charge gets paid less than the people he's bossing around. I just don't.
Movies.
Exactly. Yeah. Now that, as I said it, I thought of movies, but it's a rare occurrence, isn't it? You know. And I take your point, and maybe you can make an exception for Ronaldo, but generally, I don't think it's a great way to go.
So Alex said some players are underpaid. What did you?
Maybe.
What did you make of that?
It wasn't.
Sorry, I know it's off topic. It's just something I just.
It wasn't Gabriel Obertan.
Bebe, apparently. So what do you think about that?
About some players being underpaid?
Yeah.
I think it might be referring to United's youth structure and the payments that we have there. I think 50, 60 grand is all we allow ourselves to pay to. I think it's up to under 18 level.
Do you remember when we messed Wes Brown around over a contract? And we were really funny with like homegrown players, John O'Shea as well. I think we just pissed them about over money.
I don't think now we could say anyone's underpaid. I think it probably does refer to the youth players, because there is a cap that we have for youth players, which I agree with, in all honesty. I mean, £50,000-60,000 for the average working man is a very, very good wage. £50,000-60,000 for a 17-year-old that kicks a ball about 17 hours a week is a phenomenal wage. And if anything, paying them more than that is a disservice to them before they break into the first team. So I'm not going to agree with him that any Manchester United footballers underpaid. If you want to get into League One, League Two, then yeah, maybe, but not at Manchester United. Not having that.
All right, cheers for that, Alison. Anyway, moving on to one final quote is on the man that I love anyway. Louis Van Gaal is speaking about Louis Van Gaal's press conferences. And Sir Alex Ferguson said, I love his press conferences. I can see some of these press guys twitching in their seats. Jamie Jackson, I got to come to you first. Do you get squeaky bum time in Louis Van Gaal's press conferences or what?
No, it's water off a duck's back, to be honest. But I'll tell you what, it's interesting, considering Sir Alex Ferguson never really wanted to do press conferences. He's now sat at home, is he, or wherever, watching press conferences. It's an interesting development in his Pulse United career, isn't it? No, I mean, Louis Van Gaal, there was an occasion last Friday. I asked him about would Ashley Young be playing left back instead of Shaw, because he's got the sort of he's got pace like Shaw has in terms of attacking replacement, and he bridled at that. I had a couple of goals, and to sort of say why I thought it was an okay question, he wasn't having it. And we move on. It's just I think anyone who's worth the salt as a journalist not prefers, but just takes water off a duck's back. That sort of approach sometimes.
Alison,
I like watching.
You see a bit of Fergie's in Louis.
I like watching Van Gaal's press conferences. I don't remember really watching that many of Fergie's press conferences while he was still manager. I think the press conference thing sort of blew up under Moyes because he was like a rabbit in the headlights every single week, and he'd say something to drop himself in the shit, and that's just followed on since then. And Van Gaal, because he's so interested, he's almost Mourinho-ish. When Mourinho will do it in sort of a snide way, Van Gaal does it in almost a hilarious way. That he bats the press down, he comes out with daft stuff. If you repeat a question to him that he's already answered, he'll tell you, won't he? He'll be like, why are you asking me a stupid question? Sit down, next. And I think that's awesome. I think it's probably leaving the press taking a negative spin on United when they probably could take a positive spin on United, especially when you compare to how they're treating Man City at the moment. But I love it. I can't fault it.
Jamie, I'm going to have to let you speak on that. Do you think Louis Van Gaal is do you think a lot of the negative stories are coming from Louis Van Gaal's negative attitude towards some of the members of the press?
No, I don't think so.
I'm not going to say yes.
He was never going to say yes.
I'm not sure. For example, Louis Van Gaal, whatever he did, if he handed out brandies and chocolate, could have averted, say, the David De Gea thing collapsing. You have to write about that. I think he gets quite a sort of welcoming press. I mean, he's good value. The one where he was seeing Louis Van Gaal's army a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember that one? He sort of said it a couple of times like that. I mean, that's just that's just great copy. Rather someone like him than someone who's a bit monochrome and a bit boring. Basically, he's certainly not that.
Like David Moyes, you mean?
You said that, not me.
Anyway, guys, on that note, I'm gonna wrap it up here for today. But if you've enjoyed this, guys, get your best comments or your best quotes from Sir Alex Ferguson in below. What have you thought about our thoughts on the quotes today? Thanks to Jamie Jackson for joining us. You can find him on Twitter. His handle will be down there below. Stephen Allison for joining us as well. I'm Adam McCullough. Make sure you subscribe to Full Time Devils. We are out of here.